Here, time isn't linear. The present and the past overlap. Since the beginning of time, the Butchulla people have lived on our island. When a stranger appeared in 1836, she was just a minute grain of sand to us. Nothing compared to the generations that were here before. But that one grain of sand left a legacy. Eliza Fraser's story will hook you in. It's about a damsel in distress. It's full of tension and suspense and sexual titillation. But it's a fabrication.
This is a plain, unvarnished tale, exaggerating nothing but recording truly and faithfully the events beginning on the 24th day of May, 1836. It was on a voyage due for Liverpool that a mighty storm came, the sea indeed run mountains high, when we struck with great violence upon a hidden reef. The ship was lost. My husband, 2 crewmen and I quit the wreck and put to sea. Several days later, about midnight, we were driven onto an unknown island, inhabited by a savage race of people. Drenched with the sea and nearly famished with hunger and cold, we anxiously awaited the return of morning.
I'm Fiona Foley, a member of the Wandunna clan of the Butchulla Nation. Our land covers all of Fraser Island, from the mouth of the Burrum River in the north, west to Bopple Mountain to Double Island Point and Tin Can Bay in the south. We call this island K'gari. I've loved this place since I was a child, from the rainforest to the freshwater lakes, the eucalyptus forests and the Banksia swamps. Of course it seems strange to Eliza Fraser. She would have been confronted by everything she saw. But can you imagine the anxiety my ancestors felt when they first saw Eliza? The longer they stayed on the beach, the more tensions grew. Were the strangers coming in peace or looking for conflict? My people knew Eliza couldn't survive alone, so they took her in.
At dawn, the frightful-looking savages approached us, with the ferocity of wild beasts, all armed with knives or dirks and long spears. They made prisoner of my husband, leaving me alone on the beach. The squaws commenced close examination of my person, then began beating and maiming me with clubs and encouraging their children to pinch me, to pull my hair and throw dirt into my face and eyes. They then put into my arms one of the most deformed and ugly-looking brats that my eyes ever beheld. I was conducted to one of their villages, where almost daily I received the most harsh and cruel treatment, being seldom allowed sufficient food to satisfy the cravings of nature. The fishing of the natives failing them, they began to suffer so much for the want of food that they were compelled to seek for it on another part of the island. They traversed a path thickly covered with briars and low brush, which rendered the travelling extremely painful. I became so much exhausted as to be obliged to drop my burden. My mistress became greatly enraged, and gnashing her teeth, seized me by the throat until I became nearly strangled.
Eliza was vulnerable and the women wanted to help her. She was sunburnt, so they covered her in ash and animal fat to soothe her skin and protect her from the mosquitoes and flies. Eliza saw it as an act of aggression, but really, it was an act of kindness. They provided shelter, they provided water. Without the help of the butler, Eliza would have perished. To survive, everyone had to pitch in and help. In butler society, women and men did separate tasks. So Eliza stayed with the women. She had to collect wood. She didn't like that. And she had to look after the children. She didn't like that either. She called it being a slave of the slaves. But in fact, looking after children and tending to the fire were the two easiest jobs. Aboriginal women set a cracking pace. When they're out hunting and gathering food, Eliza wouldn't have been able to keep up.
About the middle of the day, we reached a cluster of inhabited huts of another clan of savages where, to my inexpressible joy, I once more met with my husband after a separation of 3 weeks. Alas, what a melancholy spectacle did his emaciated body present. His strength failed so much as to render him unable to obey the commands of his savage taskmasters. A spear was thrust into his body in my presence, which caused me in a fit to exclaim, "Jesus of Nazareth, I can endure this no longer." A few moments before he expired, he retained his senses and uttered, "Eliza, I am gone."
First, Eliza wrote that her husband died from illness. Then later she said he was speared. She knew that the more she dramatised the story, the more attention she'd get, until the story outgrew her. It was a media sensation, published in newspapers across the world. And the truth got lost. The stories Eliza told about beasts and savages fed the negative stereotypes of Aboriginal people. Her words inflamed the colonial prejudices that would be used down the track to justify the killing and dispossession of Aboriginal people. Her words took our humanity away.
The reader may imagine how great must have been my surprise, as well as disgust, to be visited by one of the most ugly and frightful-looking Indians my eyes ever beheld, with proposals that as I had lost my mate, I should become his squaw. Oh, do me the kindness either to stab me to the heart or knock me on the head with a tomahawk. Death by his hands would have been far preferable than becoming his companion. He seized me by the shoulder and fiend-like forced me within the enclosure of his filthy cabin. But before he had time to accomplish his designs, the God of mercy interposed. 13 resolute young men arrived from Moreton Bay just in time to frustrate the designs of the savage brute. He took sudden flight, and I was hurried into a boat and rescued from one of the most alarming situations in which an unfortunate female could be placed. After my deliverance to Liverpool, when at night I lost myself in sleep, I frequently awoke, thinking myself still in the power of the savages, whose terrific yells I imagined I distinctly heard.
She came just for a few weeks. But after she left, the butler people became invisible. She was just a grain of sand. Yet today the island bears her name. The tourism industry peddles her story. In 2014, Our native title was recognised, but we still don't own the land. We can't build on it. We can't make decisions for it. We can't run our own tourism on it and tell our own history of it. We need you to let Eliza's words go. Let them wash away, out and over the horizon. I'd like you to call this place by its real name. Gari. Paradise.